Welcome, dear learners. We are going to deal with the topic of characteristics of right and left in detail with an example in order to understand the concept of sociology and religion. In this lecture, a general outline for the concept of right and left at international outlook, regional importance in the concept of right and left facts in Indian art, also in daily life are discussed. As objectives of this lecture, learners will enable to understand the concept of right and left with religious contextual, to demand the learners be aware of the socio-political role of religion as a whole, to take an active part in the course for the purpose of deeper understanding basic idea of right and left at this stage. Shall we now go to the topic? One fundamental opposition dominates the spiritual world of human, that between the sacred and the profane. Certain beings or objects, by virtue of their nature or by the performance of rites, or as they were soaked with a special essence which consecrates them, sets them apart, and bestows extraordinary powers, which then subjects them to a set of rules and restrictions. Things and persons which are denied this mystical quality have no power, no dignity. They are common and except for the absolute interdiction on coming into contact with what is sacred free. Hence, the multitude of prohibitions and taboos which by keeping them separate protect both sacred and profane worlds at once. The significance of the antithesis between profane and sacred varies according to the position in the religious sphere of the mind, which classifies beings and evaluates by each group. Supernatural powers are not all of the same order. Some work in harmony with the nature of things and inspire veneration and confidence by their regularity and majesty. Others, on the contrary, violate and disturb the order of the universe, and the respect of they impose is founded chiefly on aversion and fear. All these powers have in common the character of being opposed to the profane, to which they are all equally dangerous and forbidden. Contact with a corpse produces in a profane being the same effects as sacrilege. Sacrilege is a technical and not necessarily intrinsically outrageous violations, such as improper reception of a sacrament of what is sacred because consecrated to God. In this sense, Robertson Smith has rightly pointed out that the notion of taboo comprised simultaneously the sacred and the impure, the divine and the demonic, but the perspective of religious world changes when it is regarded no longer from the point of view of the profane, but from that of the sacred. The impure is separated from the sacred and is placed at the opposite pole of the religious universe. On the other hand, from this point of view, the profane is no longer defined by purely negative features. It appears as the antagonistic element which by its very contact degrades, diminishes and changes the essence of things that are sacred. It is an insignificant, as it were, but an active and contagious nothingness. The harmful influence that it exerts on things endowed with sanctity does not differ in intensity from that of baneful powers. There is an invisible transition between the lack of sacred powers and the possession of ominous powers. Thus, in the classification which has dominated religious consciousness from the beginning and in increasing measure, there is a natural affinity and almost an equivalence between the profane and the impure. The two notions are combined and in opposition to the sacred form the negative pole of the spiritual universe. From these discussions, we could come to a conclusion that opponent is being created as positive and negative, good and bad, similarly right and left. Let us look the pioneer study. N. Bhattacharya's works on history of Tantric religion studies the different aspects of Tantrism, its vastness and intricacies, its heterogeneous and contradictory elements, and gives a historical perspective to the conglomeration of ideas and practices through space and time. The development of Tantrism is traced from pre-Vedic times and early Buddhist and Jain periods down to the evolution of the concept of Shakti in Indian religious thinking. The sequence is carried forward by a study of the development of Tantric Buddhism in India and Tantric ideas and practices in medieval religious systems. This important work also incorporates a review on Tantric art and a glossary of Tantric technical terms with reference to text and intermediaries. This is an extensive study of left-hand path individuals and groups from ancient times to modern movements, such as the Church of Satan and the Temple of Set, both of which have individual chapters in the book. Ancient paths include the Egyptian cult of Set, Hinduism, Buddhism, Zoroastrianism, and Yazidis, Neo-Platonists and Greeks and Germanics, the slaves and the Assassins, dualist sects and Faustian path, the Hellfire Club, the Sede, Marx and sinister aspects of Bolshevism. Now we will move to this concept to the Hindu cosmology in terms of duality of unity. As we had early pointed out, the Hindu worldview holds the cosmos to be holonymic. Holonymic system is considered a type of physical system in which the state of the system can be understood by a set of independent and globally defined variables, which are also known as generalized coordinates. These coordinates are used to describe the position and orientation of the system in space. And symmetry, but within that symmetry, the existence of two opposite and complementary principles is recognized. The supreme reality is an indivisible whole, but within that unity of the whole is a fundamental dualism of a male principle Purusha and a female principle Prakriti. The Nyaya Vaisheshik school of Hindu philosophy holds the cosmos to be composed of two halves. The cosmic part is made of two halves, variously represented and described as Purusha, Prakriti and Shiva, Shakti. These two complementary principles also represent the passive and active, the matter and the energy, the gross and the subtle, and the right and the left. The cosmic process is an ongoing dynamic cycle. An ascending phase follows a descending phase. Evolution leads to a peak and then dissolution to the beginning point when the cycle repeats again. The description of Vratya means the cosmic order in Atharva Veda brings out this inherent duality. The right eye of Vratya is the shining sun. The left eye is bliss-giving moon. The right ear is all-pervading Agni. The left ear Vayu. The two nostrils are day and night, and the two parts of the skull are Diti, the impermanent creation, and Aditi, permanent cosmic matter. And the head is the sense of time. It is taken from Atharva Veda. In Hinduism, the direction of the life-sustaining sun, the east, has a special significance, and all orientations are with respect to the east. With east as the top facing directions, north becomes the left and south the right. The words for the left and the right are Vama and Dakshina, which also means, like Dakshina means south. The right is Dakshina, Saral means straightforward, honest, impartial, amiable, compliant and submissive. The left is Vama, contrary, a reverse, crooked, opposite yet lovely, beautiful, sweet and charming. The right and the natural direction of movement is clockwise. Anti-clockwise movement is contrary and unnatural. The time itself, as represented in a clockwise circular cyclic motion, has a descending and an ascending phase. The Pinta Brahmanta theory of the macrocosm correspondence of Hindu philosophy presents the possibility of a spiritual awakening where one can realize the cosmos in oneself. Yogic and meditative practices make use of the differences between the processes of the left and the right side of the human body. The human body, which is considered a microcosm, is believed to consist of sthula, means gross body, and sukshma, subtle body. The subtle means etheric body is a network of numerous subtle channels known as nadis, from Sanskrit root nada, meaning vibration. The most important of these nadis are the central channel Sushumna and the two flanking channels, the white lunar channel Ida on the left and the red solar channel Pingala on the right. In the meditative practice of pranayama leading to spiritual awakening, these channels are cleared through breathing exercises to allow the free flow of subtle energies, which normally stay dormant. The two recognized paths of spiritual practice followed by Shakta Tantrics are the Dakshinachar, Vamachar, the left path and the right path, with totally opposite observances and practices. The Dakshina means right path has social and religious sanction and considered superior to Vamachar. The left path, which breaks all established social norms and taboos in its practices and is considered the contrary path. It is also to be noted that Hindu cosmology says there are only two eternal paths, Shukla, the path of light, and Krishna, the path of darkness. Those who go with the light do not return again, while those who go with darkness have to come back. Dear learners, now we will move to the left and right concept in art. The differentiation of the left and the right has been a favorite subject of representation in particularly Hindu art. These representations, which occur in paintings, ritual, diagrams, sculptures, icons, and architectural constructions, are illustrations which explain the different qualities and attributes of the two components of one composite reality. They are also stylized and symbolic information diagrams presenting abstract philosophical concepts in concrete and visual form. The visualization of cosmic principles as anthropomorphic icons in Hindu art always includes the female counterpart of the main male deity. Shiva, Parvati, Uma, Maheshwar, Lakshmi, Vishnu in different configurations, postures, and with different gestures and implements in the hands are examples of such dualistic representations. The best known of these are the half man, half woman composites called Ardhanarishwara images. The joining of Shiva and Parvati in one body signifies the psychic oneness, where the conception of masculinity and femininity as two divisible qualities is shown to be as illusory as the idea of duality of matter and energy, body and soul. One is inherent and coexist with the other in a dynamic process. The two principles are interdependent and exist simultaneously. As integral as vak means utterance and ardha means sense, such composite icons show distinct visual features in the two halves. The left feminine half holds tools and implements of compassion and knowledge, while the male half holds weapons and tools of work. The mystic Yab Hume Emrc of Tibetan art, in which Yab and Hume, the great mystic father and mother, are locked in embrace, mirroring and reflecting each other, represents the same concept of the unity of contrasts. However, the Shakti and the Shiva of Hindu Tantras are replaced by Prajna, means knowledge, wisdom, as female principle, and Upaya as the dynamic male principle of the Buddhist Tantras. The sacred syllables Oma and Ohumo are also significant in this context as representative of ascent towards descent from universality. Now, this is the important segment, the left and the right in daily life. Indian worldview holds the cosmos to be holonymic and symmetric, as earlier we pointed out about what is holonymy. But within that symmetry, the existence of two opposite and complementary principles as the fundamental constituents of the cosmic phenomena is maintained. The Purusha, Prakriti and Shiva Shakti pairs of Indian thought also represent passive and active, matter and energy, gross and subtle, and the right and the left. The right is Dakshina, Saral, straightforward, honest, impartial, amiable, compliant and submissive. It is also the south, the left is Vama, crooked, reverse, contrary, opposite, yet lovely, beautiful and charming. The differentiation of the left and the right has been a favorite subject of representation in India, particularly in art. The representations which occur in paintings, as earlier we pointed out, rituals and diagrams, sculptures and icons, which explain the different qualities and attributes of these two components of one composite reality. They are also stylized and symbolic informations, diagrams presenting abstract philosophical concepts in concrete visual form. The distinction between the right and the left is scrupulously maintained in Indian culture. In daily life, the use of left or right notions is prescribed for various functions. The proposed presentation will illustrate, like the upcoming presentation, through visual examples drawn from rituals, art and life in India, this distinction between the left and the right, and link it to the philosophical concept underlying the representations. The distinction between the right and left is maintained scrupulously in Indian culture even today. The female place is on the left of the male, she is Vama, the left half of the whole being, the half of the heart. However, in specific rituals and ceremonial worship, she comes to the right, because the right is pure and sacred. The practice of considering the left hand as profane and the right hand as pure, means sacred, is strictly followed in daily life. Actions like eating, writing, offering, receiving are reserved for the right hand. Parents take extra care in the upbringing and of left-handed children to ensure that they use the right hand for these activities. All ceremonial rituals, such as on the occasion of birth, beginning of education, marriage, pregnancy, death, etc., prescribe in detail which limbs of the body, left or right, are to be used for various steps in the ritual. In Hindu palmistry, the right hand is considered to be one's own, while the left expresses the personality and the destiny of the spouse, male or female counterpart. The practice of considering right as correct is extended to circular motions, where clockwise motion is considered right and according to the order in the universe, while the counterclockwise motion is against the order and believed to lead to disorder. The swastika motif, which is representative of the auspicious or harmless universal order, is always drawn clockwise. The auspicious alpana patterns drawn on the ground are made with clockwise. It is also to be noted that in cooking, spices are grounded with clockwise motion. Items are prepared using clockwise stirring to improve the quality of the food. To have an example, the spiral shaped food item jalebis has clockwise form. In the preparation of Ayurvedic medicines, herbs are ground clockwise for better efficacy of the drug. Body massage is classified as solar massage with clockwise movement, and lunar massage with counter-clockwise movement. Sleeping on the left shoulder is clockwise. Lord Vishnu, who signifies cosmic order, is said to have switched shoulders at regular intervals in his deep sleep. In a dynamic, living cosmos, the physical symmetry contains always an asymmetric element which comes from the movement of the life processes, from the movement of the mind, thought and consciousness. This asymmetry goes away only with death. Living life in harmony with the cosmic movement is the principle followed in Hindu thought. From vrata means cosmic order comes vratya, cosmic being, and the idea of individual as vratastha means one who follows the cosmic order. The cosmic process begins from a neutral, null point, acquires motion in one direction to evolve fully, and reverses to dissolve and come to rest again. In oneness, there are two. In duality is unity. Every point of view has an opposite point of view. To achieve a balance of these opposites is harmony, a state of dynamic stability. The quest of science consists in trying to understand the cosmos we can see, observe, study and analysis. The characteristics of right and left. The different way in which the collective consciousness envisages and values the right and the left appears clearly in language. There is a striking contrast in the words which in most Indo-European languages designate the two sides, while there is a single term for right which extends over a very wide area and shows great stability. The idea of left is expressed by a number of distinct terms which are less widely spread and seem destined to disappear constantly in the face of new world. Some of these words are obvious euphemisms and others are of extremely obscure origin. It seems, says Millet, that when speaking of the left side, one avoided pronouncing the proper word and tended to replace it by different ones which were constantly renewed. Multiplicity and instability of terms for the left and their evasive and arbitrary character may be explained by sentiments of disquiet and aversion felt by the community with respect to the left side. Since the thing itself could not be changed, the name for it was in the hope of abolishing or reducing the evil, but in vain, for even words with happy meanings when applied by antiphrases to the left are quickly contaminated by what they express and acquire a sinister quality which soon forbids their use. Thus, the opposition which exists between right and left is seen even in different natures and destinies of their names. The same contrast appears if we consider the meaning of the words right and left. The former one is used to express ideas of physical strength and dexterity, of intellectual rectitude and good judgment, of uprightness and moral integrity, of good fortune and beauty, or of judicial norm, while the word left evokes most of the ideas contrary to the things said above. To unite these many meanings, it is ordinarily supposed that word right meant first of all our better hand, then the qualities of strength and skill which are natural to it, and by extension diverse analogous virtues of the mind and heart. But this is an arbitrary construction. There is nothing to authorize the statement that the ancient Indo-European word for the right first had an exclusively physical connotation, and the more recent formed words such as our droit and the Armenian adjective, before being applied to one of the sides of the body, express the idea of force which goes straight to its object by ways which are normal and certain in opposition to ways which are tortuous, oblique and abortive. In fact, the different meanings of the word in our language, which are the products of an advanced civilization, are distinct and juxtaposed. If we trace them back by the comparative method to the source from which these fragmentary meanings derive, we find them fused together originally in one notion which encompasses and confounds them all. We have already met this notion. For the right, it is the idea of sacred power, regular and beneficent, the principle of all effective activity, the source of everything that is good, favorable and legitimate. For the left, this ambiguous conception of the profane and the impure, the feeble and incapable, which is also maleficent and dreaded. Physical strength or weakness here is only a particular and derivative aspect of much more vague and fundamental quality. Most of the ethnic communities consider the right is sacred side, the seat of good and creative powers. The left is the profane side, possessing no virtue other than, as we shall see, certain disturbing and suspect powers. The same contrast reappears in the course of the evolution of religion. In more precise and less impersonal forms, the right side is the side of the gods, where houses the white figure of a good guardian angel. The left side is dedicated to demons, the devil, a black and wicked angel holds in dominion. Even today, if the right hand is still called good and beautiful and the left bad and ugly, we can discern in these childish expressions the weakened echoes of designations and religious emotions which for many centuries have been attached to the two sides of our body. It is a motion current among the New Zealand Maori that the right is side of life and of strength, while the left is the side of death and of weakness. Fortunate and life-giving influences enter us from the right and through our right side, and inversely, death and misery penetrate to the core of our being from the left. So, the resistance of the side which is particularly exposed and defenseless has to be strengthened by protective amulets. The ring that we wear on the third finger of the left hand is primarily intended to keep temptations and other bad things from us. Hence, the great importance in divination of distinguishing the sides both of the body and in space. If we have felt a convulsive tremor while sleeping, it is a sign that a spirit has seized. According to whether the sign was on the right or on the left, we can expect good fortune and life or ill fortune and death. The same rule holds the general for humans, which consist in the appearance of animals thought to be bearers of fate. Sometimes these messages are susceptible of two contradictory interpretations according to whether the situation is seen from the point of view of the person who sees the animal or of the animal which he encounters. If it appears on the left, it presents its right side, therefore it can be considered favorable, but these divergences, carefully maintained by the augurs for the confusion of the common people and the increase of their own prestige, only show in a still clearer light the affinity that exists between the right and life and between the left and death. No less significance, concordance links the sides of the body to regions in space. The right represents what is high, the upper world, the sky, while the left is connected with the underworld and the earth. It is not by chance that in pictures of the last judgment, it is the Lord's raised right hand that indicates their sublime abode to the elect, while his forward left hand shows the damned, the gaping jaws of hell ready to swallow them. The relation uniting the right to the east or south and the left to the north or west is even more constant and direct, to the extent that in many languages the same words denote the sides of the body and the cardinal points. The axis which divides the world into two halves, the one radiant and the other dark, also cuts through the human body and divides it between empire of light and that of darkness. Right and left extend beyond the limits of our body to embrace the universe. According to a very widespread idea, at least in Indo-European area, the community forms a closed circle at the center of which is the altar, the ark of convenient, where the gods descend and from which divine aid radiates. Order and harmony reign within the enclosure, while outside it extends a vast night, limitless and lawless, full of impure germs and traversed by chaotic forces. On the periphery of the sacred space, the worshippers make a ritual circuit round the divine center, their right shoulders turned towards it. They have everything to hope for from one side, everything to fear from the other. The right is the inside, the finite, assured well-being and peace. The left is the outside, the infinite, hostile and the perpetual menace of the evil. The equivalents would have in themselves allow us to assume that the right side and the male element are of the same nature, and likewise the left side and the female element, but we are not reduced to a simple conjecture on this point. For example, a tribal community from New Zealand, the Maori, which we have already seen that example, it is another one. Maori apply the terms Thama, Thani and Thama Vahini to the two sides of the body. Here we find intimately combined the privilege of strong sex and that of the strong side. Undoubtedly, God took one of Adam's left ribs to create Eve, for one and the same essence characterizes woman and the left side of the body. It is a matter of the two parts of a weak and defenseless being, somewhat ambiguous and disquieting, destined by nature to passive and receptive role and to a subordinate position. Thus, the opposition of the right and the left has the same meaning, and the application as the series of contrasts, very different but reducible to common principles presented by the universe, sacred power, source of life, truth, beauty, virtue, the rising sun, the male sex, and can add the right side. All these terms are interchangeable as are their contraries. They designate under many aspects the same category of things, a common nature, the same orientation towards one of the two poles of the mystical world. Moreover, the distinction of good and evil, which for long solidary with the antithesis of right and left, will not vanish from our conscience the moment the left hand makes a more effective contribution to human labor and is able, on occasion, to take the place of the right. If the constraint of a mystical ideal has for centuries been able to make man an individual being, physiologically mutilated, a liberated and foresighted community will strive to develop better the energies dormant in our left side and in our right cerebral hemisphere, and to assure by an appropriate training a more harmonious development of the organism. Dear learners, I hope you might have enjoyed this session with the enormous information on notion on left and right, the characteristics on the left and right, ritual position of left and right from regional to transnational outlook. Thank you and all the best.